support of SMEs and startups. This commitment is key in order to ensure that technical standards effectively respond to their needs and encourage their growth and competitiveness on global markets. The important declarations and important commitments taken by the G7, the previous G7 meetings, together with the commitments taken at G7 in Hiroshima as regards the development and governance of advanced technologies, especially artificial intelligence, underline the importance to protect the democratic principles in the technological development based on the indications that will come out of the first session. The G7 countries will provide answers based on the existing knowledge and the development program of the next technological and technical norms. And we will also talk about standardization in emerging sectors like enabling technologies for the industry, sustainability of critical raw materials and where to find them, quantistic technology and artificial intelligence. Also, in the light of the decisions and the commitments taken by the ministers of the industry, the innovation and technology. Thank you to the technology based on consent and oriented to market. We can favor integration among sectors by promoting at the same time democratic principles. Moreover, we recognize the importance of sharing best practices to foster the digital transformation of industry, mitigating the risks of adopting new technologies and reaping their full benefits in terms of productivity and sustainability. This S7 summit therefore marks a historic moment with the hope that it will become an annual event that recognizes the role of standardization in ensuring prosperity and well-being through closer collaboration with the respective governments. Indeed, we invite the G7 countries to consider standardization as an essential ally in achieving economic and social policies, and we thank them for supporting the inclusive involvement of stakeholders in the development of standards, with particular attention to SMEs. I would like to conclude by particularly thanking the Italian government and Minister also for making this first S7 summit possible and for the attention he will give to the direction that will emerge from it and which we will present to him in the coming days. We hope that the summit can become a regular event, fully part of the G7 meetings, so that technical standardization can give its contribution to the policies of the world leaders. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a fruitful day. Thank you for your attention. I have a few other things to say because, as you've seen, Minister Adolfo also could not be here physically, given another commitment he's had at the very last minute. And yesterday during the night, he sent us a message because he wanted to be here with us, with you. So I have the pleasure to read you the message that the minister sent us yesterday night. I am really happy to take part in this inaugural S7 meeting, the G7 of Standardization, organized by UNI. This summit is organized at the end of another meeting held in Trento and Verona that led to the declaration of the Ministers of Industry, Technology and Innovation of G7 last 14 and 15 of March 2024. The challenges that the G7 governments have to face are numerous and complex. Italy this year has the presidency of the G7 and it wanted to bring the industry at the heart of the international agenda, focusing the attention on the deep acceleration that we've had over the past years as regards the integration of new technologies in society and in the productive fabric. Therefore, we need to face the impact of digital innovation on the economic growth and on industrial competitiveness by exploiting at the same time this digital transformation and artificial intelligence in order to evolve our economies and societies in an inclusive and sustainable way. In this context, the exchanges among G7 countries in Verona confirmed, among others, the importance of collaboration in order to define standards for digital technologies. In particular, we are assisting to the rise of a global market for quantistic technologies that should include the development and the adoption of appropriate technical standards as well as pre-standardization activities. The development of open and voluntary based standards plays a fundamental role also for the next generation of technologies. It has to be in line with our democratic values and principles. At the same time, a great importance is attached to the recruitment of human resources with specific technical skills and the share of technical competencies and its support to research and development for the industrial adoption of quantistic technologies. In order to effectively support the decisions and commitments taken by the G7 governments, cooperation among the standardization bodies will be fundamental, also through the sharing of information with public and private stakeholders, indeed activities to define international standards. Moreover, we will have to keep encouraging the development and the adoption of international technical standards through multi-stakeholders processes. In addition to that, national standardization bodies have a fundamental role to play in the development of a global market that has to be transparent and based on rules and procurement chains, especially for hydrogen with low carbon emissions based on international principles and certification systems compliant with social and environmental rules. We also have to work in order to develop standards and international certifications, also for a methodology to calculate greenhouse gas emissions, and we need a mechanism, a mutual mechanism, in order to trade and to ensure the reliability, the transparency as regards the carbon intensity. So the S7 summit represents the importance of our collective efforts in order to shape a sustainable, inclusive and safe future. By working together the G7 standardization bodies are invited to implement the decision taken by our government to contribute to the development of a more resilient world. We would like to take this opportunity to strengthen our collaboration and to promote a significant change to the profit of all our citizens. Thank you all for your commitment in these collective efforts. Adolfo Orso. Now I would like to invite Mr. Allocca to the podium. I have a presentation, if you can please share it. Good morning, everybody.
I will do my contribution in English. So first of all, I would like to thank UNI in the person of President Rossi and Mr. Lenzi for making this event happen and for the kind invitation. I would like to greet the Minister Urso and all the distinguished panelists. And it's truly an honor and a privilege for me to be here today and to open such important and high-level event. Business at OECD is the business voice against corruption, with a network of more than 10 million corporations in more than 55 countries. It is the institutional stakeholder for the private sector to the OECD, and through its Anticorruption Committee contributed to the development of the OECD Anti-Bribery Convention. The Convention is one of the most important tools in the fight against corruption. It establishes legal binding standards. It introduced an holistic approach uniting 46 countries against corruption. On this, let me emphasize two numbers, 2024 and 0. 2024, this year, is a critical year for the fight against corruption as the Anti-Bribery Convention turns 25 and could be a tremendous opportunity to change our vision in the fight against corruption. And this brings us to the second number, 0. 0 is a value, 0 has a value, 0 must be a target as zero corruption. As chair of the Business at OECD Anti-Corruption Committee, I feel a great responsibility. And I think that we all have a solemn duty to fight this global cross-cutting issue. We must face it together to guarantee a sustainable future and progress on long-term challenges. If we allow corruption to deprive the next generation of key resources such as education, healthcare, security and safety standards, environmental rights, social wellness, we will inflict an intolerable burden of inequality on our children. For this reason, we must have the courage to admit that it is possible to eliminate corruption, and we must give to this target a proper dignity in the UN SDG agenda. In order to translate this commitment into action, we have issued a manifesto that is based on OECD standards and best practices. It is a multi-stakeholder paper that can be applied by public and private organizations, by business representatives and corporations. The manifesto calls for the treatment of zero corruption as an 18th SDG and puts forward the 10 key actions to build a more resilient, as Ministro Urso underlined, sustainable, as the President underlined, and corruption-resistant, as I underline, global economy. These actions are organized in three main clusters, which represent the essential dimensions in our race to zero. Changing the way we think about corruption, creating meaningful tools and taking impactful measures, and acting together globally. Now I will go through each action in a very quick way. So first, racing to zero. We must force our brain to travel a different pathway, breaking biases that corruption cannot be eliminated. And we go on the second action. Why? Because corruption is a crime that undermines human rights. Personally, I believe that anti-corruption programs and the human rights assurance measures share the same roots. Because corruption is a cross-cutting issue, and the benefit from zero corruption have a positive impact on the achievement of the other 17 SDGs. Number 4, stimulate responsible conduct. Develop a culture of integrity, of transparency, of ethics within any context, any jurisdiction, any governments. Regarding the responsible business conduct, I would like to say that this means that profit generated outside ethical boundaries cannot be considered as a profit anymore. This means that there is no trade-off between performance and compliance, results and rules, business and values. This means that corporations should evaluate their actions not only from an economic and financial point of view, but also considering the social impact of these actions in the context where they happen. In order to allow this, we need to speak the same language. We need shared international standards. Regarding sustainability standards, I would like to say that the B20 Integrity and Compliance Task Force, which I have the honor to serve as co-chair, has the standardization in sustainability as a priority. Number 5, incentivate and protect the brave voices. So whistleblowing is a key instrument in the fight against corruption. And there are also standards for implementing a sound whistleblowing system. Number 6, we talked about human rights. Freedom of press is a human right. We must promote the freedom of press because vigilant media protects our society by uncovering the truth and providing transparency. I will go on number 7. This is really important and very important because artificial intelligence, as also the President Rossi said, and tech for trust and transparency, artificial intelligence is a game changer in the fight against corruption. But we have to implement it with the building block approach, taking into consideration also the budget constraints of the small and medium enterprises. In this, large corporations have a bigger responsibility because they have to implement continuous monitoring systems and then give them to the small and medium enterprises in order to stabilize the supply chain in this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous context where we live. Number 8, it's one word, glocal, means think global and act local. When we design anti-corruption programs, we have to be inspired by global standards, by a global vision. But when we implement them, we have to take into consideration the peculiarities of the local context. Number 9, zero tolerance. It is self-explaining. And I go on the last action. Collective action for a multi-stakeholder approach, underlined, the multi-stakeholder approach, underlined also by the letter of the Minister Urso. Collective action is vital in order to build a resilient and sustainable business ecosystem with zero corruption. Here, governments, civil society, international organizations, businesses, and I add standards community must come together as equal partners in order to translate the global commitment into tangible results and level the playing field. Just to wrap up, the race to zero corruption is our great responsibility. We must give zero corruption its proper dignity in the UN SDG agenda. It is possible to eliminate corruption, but it takes courage. And this is a practical and necessary step towards a resilient and sustainable global economy. Let me leave you with the essential truth about zero corruption in 3 sentences. It's on, it's us, it's a must. It's on because zero corruption is already happening. We pushed the bottom from off to on. It's us. Only together can we make it happen. And it's a must because we do not have plan B. Thank you.
Passiamo adesso all'intervento del dottor Gerundino.
Buongiorno a tutti. They also asked me to speak in English. I will turn to French to make everybody unhappy. No, I'm joking. It's just that it will be my name, Daniele Gerundino. Today, some of you know me with other hats. In relation to my past professional experience, it was 20 years in ISO, as Assistant Secretary General, and been my academic career as well. And there are 3 subject matters that I have followed very passionately during my career, and they put together standardization and quality infrastructure, sustainability and innovation. In many ways they come together, and that was always the focus of my activity to cover them. Today, I've been asked to cover the topic of artificial intelligence, and in particular, the issue of governance frameworks and the role that standardization can have to shape and support the governance frameworks for AI. But let me just start with a very, very quick wrap-up. The origins of AI can be normally considered in 1956, and when a bunch of early computer scientists and theorists of information theory got together in the summer research project at Dartmouth School, and they set out the agenda for original project on artificial intelligence. The idea was based, as they say, on the conjecture that every aspect of learning and feature of intelligence can be simulated, represented, described so precisely that can be done to a machine to do that. And this is particularly, overwhelming if you think at the rudimentary stage that information technology had in '56. But then we go fast forward to the 2000, and what happened is the exponential growth of digitalization over, between the 70s and the 2000s. And you probably have heard to talk about the Moore's law with the increase of processing powers of computer. There's been the growth of the internet and the explosion of digital data that are around. This provides the basis for today's artificial intelligence that would have not been thinkable, concretely speaking, at those times, before the exponential growth of digitalization. In fact, today's dominant forms of AI are based on artificial neural networks and machine learning and deep learning approaches on artificial neural networks. We can talk days about that, but that's not the purpose of today. The first breakthrough that happened in deep learning was in 2012 when Geoff Hinton introduced the convolutional neural network and the backpropagation algorithm based on crunching data, and that was the other key contributor, Professor Fei Li, that has worked in tagging an enormous amount of data of images, and the combination of the algorithm developed by Geoff Hinton with his architecture of deep learning and the use of this data has provided the first breakthrough and has proven to be extremely successful and replicated in many ways. Then the second breakthrough came relatively shortly after, and it is with the transformer model architecture and the generative AI that has been based on that. We have the GPT, which is a generative pre-trained transformers, came out and you're all familiar, I guess, with ChatGPT 3, 4, etc. that came out. That's the breakthrough in 2018 that has opened absolutely new capabilities for AI, and the large language models that are actually based on this approach have taken up the world, and they're growing extensively in these days. So it's a race that has been there. There will be a lot of things to say. We cannot do that. It's just to wrap up where we stand. Now, these technologies and the furious, the extremely fast development they had over the past few years that, remember, was enabled by the exponential growth of digitalization, they're demonstrating unprecedented capability in a broad variety of areas, and they're reshaping a lot of things. And just to give a few examples, AI is a key enabler of Industry 4.0, where the idea, I don't talk about Industry 5.0 because I don't like the inflationary language that is used, because the foundation of these things is Industry 4.0, and it is the idea of establishing flexible manufacturing operations and bringing together cyber and physical systems that can work autonomy and do a lot of other things in the factory environment. This is also, so AI is a very crucial component in many pieces of the Industry 4.0 landscape. Other benefits that you can have, that's already breakthrough happening in healthcare. You have major things going on in transportation. You have a lot of benefits that can be captured by small businesses in the efficiency and the ability to improve the productivity. Next month, you will have the AI for Good Summit in Geneva, organized by the ITU, that brings together a lot of things that go in the right direction for AI. And on the left side, you have a very impressive things that has been developed recently by the EPFL, the Polytechnic School of Lausanne, where a new robot has basically been designed by ChatGPT in interaction with people, with scientists, but the key core ideas came from ChatGPT. So that's very interesting and alarming at the same time. In fact, these technologies, they have a tremendous potential, but they pose substantial threats. And this is where I focus my attention on the second part of this intervention, because like many emerging technologies, the issue of safety and security is extremely important, and for AI is particularly important given its pervasiveness and possibility in horizontal nature. Now, some of these threats are evident to everybody. You can see the deep fakes now. Probably the most famous case is that of Taylor Swift, that has been invested by an enormous quantity of pornographic deep fakes, but this is for many, many others. There are all the issues related to disinformation in elections, in particular in the democratic process. There are the problems of false information that circulate. Many have identified the very serious threats that AI poses to jobs in many, many areas. And you have many issues related with intellectual property rights, in the sense that you have AI systems that capture and manage copyrighted content illegally, and they generate new content based on that. So this is probably the most serious and deadly threat is that of autonomous weapons. There is a lot of issues that I'm not touching today, but this is a very scary nightmare scenarios. Now, take into account that in this context, most of the keys are in the hands, in terms of core models and technologies, of a handful is an oligopolistic frameworks driven primarily by the quest for power and profit, and you have just a few guys who are in the front seat in driving this, and this for me is really, really, really scary. It shouldn't be like that. Now, what can be done to manage the AI threats and to promote benefits for all? The governments have a key role, and this means comprehensive policy framework that can be developed by governments, and they can be supplemented by a lot of things, and particularly standardization. We have in key jurisdictions some important legislative initiatives. Probably the most important at this stage is the EU AI Act that has introduced is the first very comprehensive regulation on artificial intelligence. Then you have the White House executive order on the safe, secure, trustworthy development of use of AI. That's also another important. And you have also things going on in China with a very different approach on regulations for the AI development, and many others, but this is just. And the G7 has recognized all this, and the Hiroshima process that was launched in May 2023 in following the leaders' direction at the G7 Hiroshima summit, started to work on developing a common and comprehensive policy framework that was released in its final version at the end of last year. And this includes, in particular, three components, and particularly I focus the attention on two. So it is the Hiroshima process international guiding principles for the safe, secure, trustworthy AI, and the second is the International Code of Conduct of what organizations involved in AI should do in order to abide to the principles and to engage into the development of safe, secure, and trustful AI. Then there is another document that's part of the process, is developed by the OECD around a common understanding of generative AI and a number of issues related with that. Now, moving forward, very recently, last month, a few weeks ago, the G7 in Italy has, in the declaration of the technical ministers, has applauded the outcomes of the G7 presidency in 2023 and expressed the intention to further advancing the Hiroshima AI process comprehensive policy framework going forward and towards its application. Now, in this context, UNI, among others, has been called by the Think 7, that is the think tank behind the G7, working on quite a number of issues and proposing policy briefs to the ministers, etc., has also asked to contribute. And we gave a number of proposals, along with many others, and there is a policy brief under development that has been taken up by the T7 secretariat. They asked, I was the original, I would say, author of one part of this brief. This is bringing together the contribution of other authors, is on its way through the process, and we hope that will be accepted and promoted in the context of the G7. So that's, and I think I would like to summarize the key points, express this, and it's very much in line with what is the direction given by the Italian government for the G7 here in Italy. So the idea is to give a set of recommendations that concerns development aiming at operationalizing the principles and the code of conduct, how to put them in practice. And the paper is based on 4 elements. One is the strategic role of standardization. Then also the strategic role of scientific collaboration in many ways to basically, to put in a nutshell, to produce actually real systems that could be for the public benefit and could counterbalance the power and the extent of the systems developed by the market leader that we have indicated before. Then the critical role of education, and particularly embedding human-centered values in the development process of the AI system is a very critical thing. And then empower the citizens in relation to the use of personal data. That's also another very, very, very big issue. I focus and close with the comment, the recommendation, the proposal regarding standardization and its take-up at the strategic level. Now, we know in this context the standardization can be very effective in fostering the adoption of good practices and to provide help to operationalize regulatory goals. However, it is absolutely non-trivial, and we know that very well as well, that to ensure that the contribution of standardization is as effective and timely as required. And the challenges here are particularly severe because it is a multidisciplinary context where you do not have just a technological stream, but many other issues that need to be taken into account. And there is a breakneck speed of development that doesn't cope with the conventional way of developing standards. So this is a challenge. And we ask the G7 countries in a coordinated way to provide invaluable contribution to the standards organization, forwarding clear input consistently with the support proposed policies to shape strategic direction and prioritization for standardization in AI. So to direct the resources towards what are the most important issues to be addressed now and with something that can be delivered quickly. And the standardization organization have a big challenge because what they have to do is to ensure that you have a multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder input, but that is provided by highly qualified experts. And you need to reach the top guys in academia, the top guy in research center with the help of the government, but that is essential. Talking about multidisciplinarity and different type of stakeholders, but capturing top talents into this process, something that I know is very difficult because sometimes many of these people don't have even idea what is standardization. So this is a really challenging thing, but it's the only thing that may work because you really need super high-level competence to drive this process. The second is a transparent roadmap with very well-defined priorities and milestones. Something of that is emerging, but and here is also where the G7 countries can provide very useful contribution. And finally, a highly efficient process using all the means possible to provide timely deliverables. I'm just underlining that this is very, very difficult because these are prohibitively short times, but you need to think of new ways of doing things. Some have already been tested in a limited way. So, for example, think at the standards in the MPEG field. They have put together a model that I think is extremely remarkable. They look at standardization for the future, not for the consolidation of things that are there. They try to provide core descriptions, specifications, etc., for emerging technology. Sometimes they fail, but they have a process to doing that clearly to select the best pieces of technologies that are available. In this case, you need to integrate the input from multidisciplinary scholars that come from social sciences, the legal experts. So it's a very, very challenging thing, but can be done. The important thing is not to apply, in a rubber stamp thing. This requires a very special approach, very focused approach, and hopefully this could meet the expectation of the governments and society at large. So thank you very much for your attention.
Again. Well, good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking UNI, the ISO member here in Italy, for your leadership and commitment to international standardization, and for having organized this session in the framework of the G7. We have all seen the Declaration of Ministers of Industry issued only a few weeks ago. And for this morning, we would like, in this panel, focus on two transitions, the green transition and the digital transition. And both of them pose formidable challenges. If we talk about a transition, what we mean is a journey, actually, that we should all embark on. And when we go through this journey, we need to equip ourselves, first of all, with a strong sense of urgency. So the challenges related to climate change and to digital transition will not wait for us. This is especially true in the case of climate change. We are already seeing the dramatic effect of climate change, not as a promise for the future, it's something that is happening today. I was just reading a report saying that during last summer, 70,000 people died here in Europe because of the heat. 70,000 people, and a large majority of them women, by the way. So it's happening. 42 million people displaced every year because of the effects of climate change. Daniele spoke very well about the challenges posed by artificial intelligence that has changed dramatically in the pace that is advancing now, and we are all trying to fix and to improve things, but arriving a little bit late. So, first of all, strong sense of urgency. Second, this transition needs to be inclusive and transparent. We need to make it sure that all voices are heard, and especially developing countries. It's not just a transition, it needs to be a just transition. The third one is collaboration. We cannot address these challenges working in isolation. We need to combine our talents in a comprehensive manner so we can be really impactful in our efforts. And the fourth key element we need to equip ourselves in this journey is technical expertise. That is absolutely right. We cannot improvise here. We need to have the right skill set and to put the best we have in this conversation. So those are the four elements. And here in the standardization community, I'm the Secretary General of ISO, as you know, we ask ourselves, how can we help? How can we contribute to this journey? How can we contribute to this conversation? And there are three elements I'd like to highlight. Number one, readiness. We already have a wonderful portfolio of 25,000 international standards available to be used today. Just to name a few, in the area of climate, we have our environmental management standard, we have energy management standard, and we also have our guidelines on net zero that were led in the development by our member in the UK, and I see David Bell here, and were launched during COP27. In the area of digital transformation, we have the very first management standard on AI that was launched just a few months ago, and we also have a very emblematic standard on cybersecurity. So please do not reinvent the wheel. We have very solid and impactful standards that are already available. That's the first way we can help. The second one is conformity assessment, because this is not only about implementing the standards, it's also about being able to demonstrate that it has been properly implemented, to demonstrate it to governments, so we ensure compliance, also to demonstrate it to the public in general and to our consumers, clients, etc. It is about building trust. It's not only about technical expertise, it's also about how we build trust. And the third key element, we can bring a very collaborative platform. We have the capacity to engage with other organizations, but we not only have the capacity, but the obligation to engage with stakeholders. And we do it in a double-layer way. We engage stakeholders at the national level in the mirror committees, but we do it again at the international level when we have our international technical committees. This is a must in the standard development process. As I like to say, if I write my standards in Geneva with 2-3 consultants, I can give you a new standard in 2 weeks, but it doesn't work like that. It's not what we believe in. We believe in a fully inclusive process when we hear from government, industry, consumers, NGOs, youth, etc. So it needs to be inclusive, and this is something that we bring to the table. So when we talk about inclusiveness, we have this wonderful panel today where we will be receiving free advice from multi-stakeholder categories, from governments, from NGOs, from young people, from academia, from all categories that you can imagine, who will be talking to the leaders of the G7, first of all, to inject their perspective in the future discussions. And also they will be giving advice to us, to the standardization community. How do you think that standards can impact this discussion? And what else do we have to do? What can we do better to be successful in this journey? And I will start with Ms. Frincy Clement. She is the Canadian Ambassador for Women in AI. Some of our panelists will be participating online, others are with me here in person. So, Madame Clement, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be present in front of esteemed delegates from the G7 countries, representing the Canadian consumers at the significant S7 summit. I represent Women in AI, which is a nonprofit global community of female AI professionals with a mission of increasing representation of women in artificial intelligence. Run by volunteers, Women in AI has 15,000 members globally and presence in over 150 countries. Let's understand the state of women in AI and tech roles. Women's full and equal participation in all facets of society is a fundamental human right. Yet, around the world, from politics to entertainment to the workplace, women and girls are largely underrepresented. According to the World Economic Forum, it will take 132 years for the world to achieve gender equality. Women workers earn 80% of what men do. For women of color, migrant women, those with disabilities, and women with children, the gap is even greater. Women and girls remain underrepresented across the creation, use, and regulation of technology. Globally, only 28% of engineering graduates, 27% of the technology workforce, and 22% of the artificial intelligence workers are women. These numbers are even less for Black and Hispanic and Asian women. This limits the digital empowerment of women and girls while also hindering the transformative potential of technology. Where does this lead us? There is built-in bias in AI. As AI relies on the data available online to learn from and iterate, it risks reproducing and perpetuating societal biases, leading to unfavorable outcomes for minorities and underrepresented persons. One known example of this is a secret recruiting tool used by an online giant that effectively taught itself that male candidates were preferable. It was trained on data submitted by applicants over a 10-year period, much of which came from men. AI systems are failing females. Algorithms have the potential to amplify historical male bias as well as other often intersecting biases such as race, which risk female patients' safety and outcomes, such as an algorithm that learns typical symptoms of a heart attack from male bias data. Absence of female participation in education, research, and industry leads to bias in data, algorithms, and results of AI systems. Similarly, lack of diversity in the team that builds AI policy and design will result in flawed design and overall negative impact to the solutions. From my personal experience as an AI professional, I've often been the only woman on the AI team with no female leaders to report to. This absence continues to be an issue within the AI field. Lack of women in AI roles can also pose challenges when it comes to security and potential vulnerabilities in the AI space. For example, if an organization is deploying a tool that might interact with a human, perspectives are needed from multiple genders and also cultures that could be overlooked if left to a working group that lacks diversity. So what do we need? To ensure we are building AI systems ethically, guidelines are necessary for development and use. Absence of standardized practices across various organizations can lead to inconsistency in AI implementation, yielding unpredictable outcomes. By establishing industry-wide standards, we can ensure that AI technologies adhere to specific quality and safety measures, fostering reliability and trustworthiness. Without universally accepted guidelines, there's a risk of AI being used in ways that could inflict harm or perpetuate biases. AI must be regulated to mitigate potential harm and ensure fairness. In sectors such as healthcare and transportation, where AI plays a pivotal role, inconsistent practices pose significant safety concerns. Standardization is crucial to minimize risk and enhance the safety of critical applications, safeguarding both users and society at large. In this era of rapid AI advancement, standardization is imperative for both success of the AI industry and societal advancement. Encouraging value creation while mitigating negative impacts requires standardized approaches. Hence, standardization is not just a choice, but an essential prerequisite for the success of AI to ensure that we build safe, reliable, and responsible AI systems, fostering innovation and advancing value creation for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clement, for highlighting the role of women on AI and also in standardization. And we are working quite hard, actually, to make sure that we have gender-responsive standards. Our next speaker will also be joining online is Mr. Markus Reigl, Director of Technical Regulation and Standardization in Siemens, the EU, Germany. You have the floor.
Sergio, may I ask the regie to provide the slide that I had provided? Makes it a little easier for me to get the message across.
I think the slides are on the way.
All right. So anyhow, good morning all together. There is the slide that helps me a little with getting my message across. Let us take a look at the emerging challenges more from an industry's viewpoint. Definitely the company I am working for is industry, being a vendor of industrial goods, placing products onto the markets around the globe. And having said that, it is, I think, self-evident. We first of all look at the market access conditions, the technical regulations that we would find in the various target markets we are operating in. And a very nice source for such information on technical regulations stipulating market access conditions is the technical barriers to trade notification server of the World Trade Organization, for which I have brought that little chart on the left-hand side upper corner. showing the development over a couple of years in terms of notified technical regulations that would potentially hamper free flow of goods, which says that at present, roughly 2,000 new technical regulations per year will be registered on the TPT server, and another 2,000 come on top, which are amendments to existing regulations. If you now look into the content of those regulations as far as they apply to your business, for Siemens, of course, that are not all those 2,000 new ones every year only, but less than 5% of them are applying to our industry and engineering business. So if you look at that, you would find that the major domains of technical regulations being set in force or first notified at the WTO are likewise IT and cybersecurity, also sustainability and environmental aspects, and certainly safety, both for professional and consumer protection. Now, certainly not all of these technical regulations are potentially posing technical barriers to trade. Some of them are perfectly referring to international standards, others don't. I have to say the number of those that rather tend to not refer to international standards are increasing, and that gives us a certain concern. Second, what we also observe is, especially in very well-developed and economically strong countries, a rising number of private sector specification standards. Likewise, just for instance, as an example, the People's Republic of China, meanwhile, holds an arsenal of almost 50,000 specification standards, association standards, they call them, that are of course voluntary by nature, not necessarily stipulating market access conditions, but they may. And that leads us to internally spoken industry, private sector, enterprise, internally spoken, it leads us to the risk conclusion that you would see on the upper right side. The impact of this development on industry is, of course, the increasing effort and cost for product compliance when being ambitious to place products onto any market on the globe. Secondly, there is a certain risk of rather small and medium enterprises that simply cannot stand any longer the increasing cost for product compliance and withdraw from certain markets. And of course, we all know it by heart, that is the spirit of free trade, that such a development can hampering the importation of goods and limiting market competition and innovation. But let us not look at the risk side of the interplay in between technical regulation and standardization. Let us rather look at the opportunity. And there is a lot that we can do, definitely, both at the legislators' side, both at the side of the governments, also the G7 member states, governments and legislators, as well as the standards developing organizations. First, the legislators. I mean, pretty clear. They should aim for an alignment of their major regulations to the baselines jointly developed on international platforms. And there are beautiful deliverables that we have already learned about today, like Mr. Gerundino told us about the G7 Hiroshima artificial intelligence process that gives a nice guidance and orientation framework for the design of national regulations or regulatory frameworks for artificial intelligence. And same applies for a lot of other domains like IT security, data governance, and sustainability, partly available from the G7, also from OECD and other international platforms. And once the legislation is ready for release and for setting in force, one must, of course, make sure that they refer to really international standards. And are those being provided by ITU, ISO, first and foremost, and also IEC and some very few others. Looking at the opportunity side for the standardizers, for the standards developing organizations, finally, that has been said before already, they gotta rapidly deliver on usable standards for sustainability and environmental area that we have learned from the ISO Secretary General, that there is quite a lot available from ISO. Also data governance and Internet of Things and artificial intelligence being developed on ITU and ISO IEC Joint Technical Committee 1. Same applies to IT security. And please do not forget, see the green text on the very bottom. Standards for the data interoperability for the quality infrastructure as such. So standards not necessarily addressing product requirements, but more the requirements for the quality infrastructure. That means the accreditation and conformity assessment and certification in the quality infrastructure, as well as the standardization and the market surveillance. For these domains of quality infrastructure of countries, we desperately need well-performing and sophisticated standards, in the best case, fully digital standards, such as digital twin standards, standards for digital product passports that travel along with the products in their supply chains around the globe. Digital certificates of conformity is also an issue that we are looking for new standards, and digital calibration certificates, for instance, when it comes to calibrated goods. So this is what we would expect the both parties, legislators and standardizers, to do. On the standardizers side, certainly industry can contribute a lot. Industry, private sector does quite a lot in terms of expert knowledge contribution to the making of those standards. This is our commitment, and we would be expecting a commitment from the other end, the governments and their legislators, to, at the end, also make use of these standards and have them applied in their regulatory frameworks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Markus, for providing the perspective of the industry and also for your strong commitment towards standardization. Now we will hear from government. Mr. Louis Moria is Policy Officer from the Ministry of Economy, Finance and Industrial and Digital Sovereignty from France. You have the floor. He will also join online, hopefully. I've been advised to go to the next one. And the next one is here with us, Sarah Mukherjee. Great to have you. Sarah is the CEO of the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment from the UK, and happy to have your perspective, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you, honoured guests, and thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's a real honour to be here. Just very quickly who we are, IEMA. We're the Global Sustainability Network and Professional Institution for Sustainability Experts and Environmental Managers, with more than 22,000 members across 105 countries. And we're delighted to support the incredibly important work, both BSI and UCAS in the UK and ISO, with our staff team, but also with our expert members globally. And I think it's incredibly appropriate that we should be having this conversation in Roma, of all places, particularly as someone from the UK, because we still use miles, which are not a million miles away, no pun intended, from the Roman miles that we could have at one point walked from my home to Rome using only miles. And I think that's a really good example of how standards shape not just the measurement, but also that they frame how people and societies view themselves, that heuristic embedding of how cultures think of themselves. Now, we've talked a lot and incredibly interestingly, and I'd like to thank colleagues for some fascinating presentations. But I would say, in terms of our green economy, that standards are fundamental components of the move to a sustainable global economy and equitable economy. And I'll give you three very brief examples. First of all, around governance. As I said, we have members in more than 100 countries, in many in the global south as well. And for them, the number one issue is governance. That is the prism through which they see everything else. You cannot get a green economy functioning without good governance in many parts of the world. The money doesn't get to you, the standards change, or local administrations decide things differently. And without good governance and without good standards, we will not get to a net zero economy globally. Secondly, education. Of course, this would be a great, of course, an interest of ours because we're a professional standards body. But the current sustainability profession draws from a very, very small demographic. And we heard that from our speaker from Canada. It tends to be quite white, it tends to be quite middle class, it tends to be quite educated. With standards, educators have the ability to provide skills and training packages which will allow anybody, regardless of their background, to have access to that global workforce and that marketplace, which we know, those of us who work with business, is white hot at the moment. People need sustainability skills and people need to get them, and standards, I think, is the key to unlocking that. And thirdly, partnerships. Again, those of us who work with SMEs know that this forest of regulations that are coming for wherever you live in the world, wherever your national territory or international territories are, it's difficult for large organizations to cope with that, with the complexity. It's impossible for SMEs. And standards allow, good standards, allow proper partnerships across supply chains. So you're not just having a transactional conversation, you're having a proper partnership. Now, we also know, of course, that standards are only as good as people's ability to understand and to use them. And I would draw on my experience as a former journalist. I'm sorry, I am a former journalist for 20 years in terms of communication. Now, I know from personal experience, trying to get editors interested in standards doesn't really tend to happen that much. And I would give you the example of the environmental NGO community. Now, they have managed to, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, we have charities such as Surfers Against Sewage, very, very tiny charities with limited resources that get incredible airtime and get their messages across very clearly. And they do it to a mass audience by talking to the heart first and the brain second. Now, I know there is criticism of some of these NGOs, of the way they use science, but I think it's very easy for us to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, that we're so concerned about getting the rigor of the message across that we fail to get the message across at all. And so I think, again, using the right framing and the right articulation, there are many opportunities, and happy to talk about this a little later, to speak to young people, to people of colour, and people from disadvantaged communities about the transformative and liberating effect of good and well thought through standards. And I think that the comments we've been hearing about corruption absolutely nail this. You cannot get to an equitable society without good standards on corruption. And just to conclude, I will go back, if I may, to my theme of the ancient Romans. When I talk to my son about how tall he is, he says 6'4". Now, that's a young man born 2,000 years after the height of the Roman Empire, and he uses a measurement that would be recognizable to a centurion doing a day's march across the empire. And I think that is such a good example of how a well-constructed, well-applied and well-communicated standard can have a lasting effect on society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was really great. One comment about what you said, standard being understandable. We've been working quite hard in creating machine-readable standards, and definitely we need to do more in creating human-readable standards and translate our technical content in something that can be easily understood by a normal person. So thank you for that. And now I think we can come back to our previous speaker, Mr. Louis Morilhat, Policy Officer of Ministry of Economy, Finance and Industrial and Digital Sovereignty from France. You have the floor.
Yes, can you hear me right now? Do you hear me?
Yes.
No?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's okay? Okay, thank you. So good morning, everyone, and thank you to Uni for organizing this event. As shared by G7 leaders, and particularly in the Hiroshima Declaration, the challenges raised by the digital and environmental transition require coordinated action involving a wide range of stakeholders. For instance, connectivity is the backbone of the digital economy. And today, more than ever, the resilience and security of digital supply chains and infrastructures are essential to making our network and those infrastructures more secure, sovereign, resilient, low carbon, and sustainable. Meanwhile, the adoption of AI within our societies raises significant challenges and opportunities, as I said before, for the emergence of this technology to benefit not just industrialized economies, but the whole world. It is essential to collaborate within a multilateral framework on different topics of the AI value chain, such as talent, data, or computing power as well. We also recognize the potential and therefore the role of AI systems in solving some of the most important challenges facing the world today, including the climate crisis, global health, or education. Although, from the point of view of a public administration, the adoption of AI in public services should first and foremost enable us to progressively modernize public action, thereby contributing to the digitalization effort and offering new services to our citizens. In that line, the AI Toolkit will present the opportunity to work with G7 partners to map AI risks and opportunities in the public sector. In this perspective of those issues, technical standardization represents a relevant tool for building common solutions that ensure the effectiveness, safety, interoperability, and sustainability of digital technologies. This key role of standardization is well understood at the French level, with, for example, the recent signature of a specific partnership between the French Ministry of Economy, the General Secretariat for Investment, and AFNOR, within the framework of the France 2030 program. The aim of that kind of program is to identify as early as possible the emerging, disruptive or green technologies for which standardization work can begin, and then to encourage concrete involvement of the various stakeholders into standardization. To support social, green, and digital policies, the involvement of all the stakeholders is needed, essential for developing open, inclusive, and consensus-based common practices. In this regard, we support the multilateral approach developed by G7 and strengthened under the Italian presidency. In this way, we support and encourage the work carried out in the Hiroshima process, both the guiding principles and the code of conduct, which target not only AI developers, but all players in the AI value chain with a risk-based approach that we share. In particular, we support the development of operational tools such as monitoring tools and mechanisms with work underway at the OECD to enable us to help organizations committed to the code of conduct to implement the principles. In addition to monitoring mechanism, the code of conduct could be supported by technical standards on several topics such as watermarking. Thus, many initiatives are underway to meet the challenges of the digital transition, such as AI, quantum, green technologies, and so on. And the challenge now is to ensure good articulation between this work and efficient collaboration between the various stakeholders. And we are delighted to see that today's event is a good step in this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louis, and thank you for highlighting that standards can be a valuable tool to implement public policy and regulations. We are not policymakers, that's your job, but we help implement those policies through standards. So thank you for that. Now we will hear from the workers who are potentially impacted by all these discussions. So this is really important. We are eager to hear your remarks, Ms. Ornella Cilona from the trade union sector.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, UNI, for having identified trade unions as one of the stakeholders involved in standardization. We are in Rome, so I can begin my speech with saying, as Cato Censor, an ancient political man in Rome, said, quickly enough, if well enough. He meant that if the world changes fast, the best reaction is not just to act quickly, but to respond to changes also with high accuracy. Over the last 15 years, technical standards have been addressing a number of new issues: social responsibility, learning, environment, human resource management. And these issues are strictly related to the digital, green, and social transitions we are living now. Let me give an example related to artificial intelligence, which was here one of the most common issues in the speeches before. Artificial intelligence is an unavoidable technological revolution which affects every aspect of our life, including labor relations and employment. And it has some side effects, as Professor Gerundino said, in terms of algorithms discriminating and in terms of wage compression, job loss, disclosure of confidential information, and so on. We need to eradicate these side effects and to use artificial intelligence in a positive way, to reduce social inequalities instead of rising them, to increase collective prosperity in all the parts of the world, and to improve the quality of work. What can technical standards, what can they do? They can play a crucial role in shaping the future of technology at work, but we need to work together in line with national laws, collective bargaining, international conventions, but we need to work all together. We need to create a sort of alliance in order to use artificial intelligence in the right way. And the voice of trade unions must be heard and considered properly, because we are badly affected by the artificial intelligence, and we can use the technical standards also to avoid the side effects. The trade union inclusiveness in standardization activities is growing, but we have different situations regarding the national, the European, and the international context. In Italy, the three Italian trade unions, CGIL, CISL, and UIL, are actively involved in the activities, in the standardization activities, and in the governance of the NSB. Because we do believe that technical standards can be a way to get a new development model and to shape a new, brighter future than the one we are living now. At the European level, the regulation 1025 in 2012 promotes the participation of societal stakeholders in standardization activities. So at the European level, we are actively involved. Mr. Mujica, if I can say something, I think that at the international level, we should do something more for the inclusiveness of trade unions. A number of new standards affecting social issues and managing the various transitions are growing. There is a growing number of them. And trade unions need to be part of the process of drafting the standards more than now. That's my point. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cilona. That's a very valuable comment. We work primarily under the national delegation principle. That means that it's at the national level where primarily the stakeholder engagement will happen. And I'm really glad to hear that you work very closely with UNI. And from there, your voice reached the international level. But I agree, at the international level, we can do more. I met with the Director General of ILO 2 weeks ago, and we agreed to explore new ways of collaboration. So I think that's very good news. Thank you for those comments. My next speaker will also join online from Japan, must be very late there, Mr. Ryota Ochi, Senior Policy Researcher, Office of Overseas Business Development and International Cooperation, SME Agency of the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm in Paris, so it's early morning, same timeline as well as over here. But anyway, thank you very much for giving me an excellent opportunity to present SME today. My name is Ryota Ochi. He belongs to SME Agency Japan. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation G7 Italian presidency. I can see several messages from SMEs for SMEs in G7 ministerial statement on March, including digital transformation as well as SME adoption of AI. And of course, for UNI, organizer for this S7 summit. I needed to mention that my remarks needed to be cut short because I need to get back to another work because I'm skipping from OECD meeting currently going on and Japan seat wouldn't allow me to skip for a long time. And the next, please. Overview of Japanese SMEs. With 3.3 million entities, SMEs share the large segment of the economy, but their resources are volatile and weak. A transition of SMEs in digital, green, tech, social issues lags behind still low level. However, we can observe interest in digitalization and AI technology, which is growing among SMEs, especially for SME managers who is interested in high level of digitalization. Moreover, possibility of use of AI may lead to various solutions for issues that many SME faces, i.e. lack of human resources. And the next chart, please. Next page, please. Next, please. According to the OECD survey, during the pandemic, across OECD countries, between 30 and 50% of SMEs embraced digital transformation. The rapid acceleration in digital adoption has enabled many small businesses to strengthen and reshape their businesses, innovate, reduce costs, and enhance productivity, and tap into new markets, including trade across borders. International standards play a fundamental role for ensuring SMEs' uptake of digital technology and their integration into global value chains. For example, standards for data sharing, ethical AI, security, and sustainability allows SMEs to develop own and market services and products to both complete and compete on more even footing with larger companies across the world. Next one, please. This week, OECD plans to have OECD D4SME high-level roundtable titled SMEs in the Era of Generative AI, under the chairmanship of Valentino Valentini, Deputy Minister of Enterprise and Made in Italy. We'd like to learn experience of other countries through international discussions. Government needs to keep momentum and scale up efforts, but governments are not alone. The ecosystem around SMEs composed by Japanese associations, universities, local authorities, large firms, and other SMEs is a key in raising awareness, strengthening skills, providing digital services, and facilitating access to digital resources. Standardization process should work. Lastly, let me express for our need for standardization work. Please provide SME lenses. Currently, Japanese standardization organization, JISC, is working hard on the domestic SMEs participation programs. You may hear about our experience at session 2, shared solutions. I'm fully aware of the standardization activities in Europe is very powerful and wishing for a strong leadership for G7 discussion under the chairmanship of Italy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ochi, and for making the time to participate in the middle of competing meetings. And it's so important, actually, to have the voice of SME. Everything we're talking today means very little if we do not incorporate SMEs in this journey. Our next speaker is based in the US, Ms. Jayne Morrow, Senior Advisor Standard Policy of NIST. You have the floor.
Hello, my name is Jayne Morrow. I'm a Senior Advisor for the Office of the Director at the National Institute of Standards and Technology in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And I'm pleased to join you today remotely from the United States. Thank you to the organizers of this S7 conference and to my co-presenter from the American National Standards Institute, Mr. Joe Tretler, for the opportunity to be here and share a bit about the work that NIST leads in standards. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has the mission to promote innovation, U.S. industrial competitiveness by advancing measurement science, standards, and technology in ways that enhance economic security and improve the quality of life for Americans and people all around the world. We do this work through leading cutting-edge scientific research, coupled with our understanding of advanced manufacturing and advanced programs around the country, and technology transfer and knowledge transfer through innovative tools in intellectual property protection and standards development. NIST has many programs and research in critical and emerging technologies, and it's through this effort that grounds our understanding and underpins novel technologies and the way that we generate standards to support these technologies in many different critical and emerging fields. One of the ways that NIST generates standards is to look at how our research can be translated into documentary standards. And NIST technical staff engage in documentary standards efforts in over 550 technical staff and 300 standards committees. And we have a number of efforts where NIST staff actually lead international standards bodies and the efforts within them. NIST programs actively complement the work of the American National Standards Institute that generates the United States approach to both standards and conformity assessment. ANSI publishes the United States Standards Strategy, which provides the ideals and guidance for how the United States develops standards and participates in international standard-setting bodies. Recently, in May of 2023, the United States government issued a separate strategy that's much more targeted on critical and emerging technology. This strategy is meant to bolster support for the private sector-led system in the United States and to clarify opportunities for the U.S. government to engage more actively in standards development and promote programs in investment and broadening participation in standards activities. The strategy has 4 major objectives, the first of which is to increase the investment in pre-standardization research and coordination, provide opportunities for workforce development that empowers the next generation of workers to be standards savvy, broadening participation in standards development activities such as removing barriers that result in a decrease in private sector engagement, and looking at how the U.S. government can increase representation and influence where it's appropriate to bolster support for the private sector in international standards engagement, and also to ensure integrity in standards development and look at how the U.S. government can bolster support for the governance structures of international standards organizations that serve all of us so well. Since today's meeting and discussion is around the link between research and standards development, I just want to point out one opportunity to showcase how NIST, as a scientific agency in the Department of Commerce in the United States, works to bolster support for greater investment in pre-standardization research. One of the areas where NIST has had a great deal of success is by pulling together diverse groups of industry and academia researchers and those in government that have a deep understanding of novel technology areas that may be emerging in markets in the future. One of the ways that we do this is creating small research consortia that share the underpinnings of their knowledge around what they can do and achieve with a given technology, and that translates into documentary standards development. It creates the methods that help underpin the overall performance of these new technologies and allow individuals that are developing novel tools to demonstrate what they can achieve with those tools, working in collaboration with government scientists and engineers from government and industry and academia. It is a collaborative effort that seems to work really well, and I wanted to share that with you. And I'd be happy to follow up with any questions you might have to learn more about those types of collaborations. When we're doing this work in standards, we look at the role of standards as part of the broader innovation ecosystem, and we think about opportunities to work across the sphere of stakeholders, including government, academia, standards development organizations, and industry. I'm happy to have had the opportunity to share briefly some of our work, and I welcome an opportunity to follow up with you. And I encourage you to watch standards.gov as a place to see updates on our efforts to implement this strategy and to work collaboratively with partners like those that we've developed with ANSI. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I wish you great success in your meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow, for sharing the perspectives of NIST and the US government. Our last 2 speakers are here with us. I'm going to start with Mattias Bergdahl, Deputy Head of Unit of Standards Policy of the European Commission. Mattias, please.
Grazie
Daniele, buongiorno, and I thank you very much. No, so I'm from the unit in the European Commission responsible for the overall coordination of standards development, but also for the standardization strategy in the Commission. So just to give you, and I will give you a very, very short update what we're doing from our side and our approach to standards development itself. It goes without saying, maybe a decade ago, standards were more considered technical matter, but since then, it's become increasingly strategic political, something we've seen several examples during the day today also, things. And it's more about not just the technical specifications, it has an impact on global trade, on market access, international relationships and everything there. And it's becoming more and more complex also to navigate in this landscape. Cooperations, like we're discussing here today, within G7 and also other contexts also. And as you are aware, in the EU we have a very ambitious agenda for digital and green transition, and in the last years we've been launching a lot of political, legislative initiatives, green hydrogen, AI as discussed today, electric grids, microchip production, etc., etc. But without technical standards, of course, we cannot be able to do this. So we're very much depending on the standards development. It was in this context we launched in 2022, beginning of 2022, our standardization strategy, which is actually trying to address these challenges we're having there. And we started actually by looking internally. We need to increase the speed. We need to break silos. I mean, even within the Commission, we have about 40 DGs covering everything from environment and climate, transport, energy, space, research and everything. And we actually realized that we are a lot of them working on standards and not even talking. So I think this is one of the takeaway from us also internally. We need to discuss better. Also on the European level, we realized that we are talking a lot about standards, but not maybe in a structured way. So we set up what we call the high-level forum of standards. It's an expert group. On a very senior level, we talk about on a national EU member state level of state secretary assembling, CEOs from companies and industry organizations. But of course, we're inclusive. We have also civil society there. We have trade union there. We have SME representatives, everything to make it work here. Academia also, not forget about that part also there. And we also nominated us what we call a chief standardization officer. For the first time in the European Commission, we have actually a person responsible for standards, for raising it to their awareness. It's bringing it to the awareness of the political masters, political awareness of actually also organizations or part of society which maybe are not discussing standards as much as it's been in the past. Challenge also, as mentioned today, in AI is speed. We need to be faster, and that's something, it's not something you change overnight. We have a very well-working system that worked perfectly for the systems when you were developing an elevator standard or a window frame standard, but if you talk about AI where the thing from Monday to Friday might be changing, how do you do this? And I think that's a common challenge we're all facing across the world to do this. So this is a continuous process. We're trying to tweak and speed up. We try to be engaging earlier in the process to have something there, but I think that's something would be very interesting to see in the coming years how we jointly can approach this also on a national level. Not mention geopolitical aspects. This is something that, of course, cooperation is important, but we also need to be more, at least from the EU side, we need to be more active in this. We need to be more engaged. We need to make sure that we have the people in place, the technical experts there with the right expert skill sets. And we have, of course, cooperation with G7, but we have, as you probably are aware, the EU-US TTC, Trade and Technology Council, where we worked on standards. We have a discussion with Japan and other key partners around the world. So this is something also we are trying to engage as much as possible internationally with these things. Then something I mentioned already today earlier is skills and education. So how do we can make sure that we have the right skill set, the right experts? And I think one of the challenges we're seeing also that we were mentioning a few of the major international corporations working on AI, they have a lot of money, but how can we then make sure that actually we have technical experts that can help us, our companies, our stakeholders also not there, and not just trained a number of skilled experts that then goes to it's a very good career for them, but maybe not as good for our member states and our countries. This is a challenge, I think so. And then, of course, the fundamental rights dimension and data protection, workers' rights, etc. It's not maybe the typical engineering training you need there. You maybe need other skill sets, you maybe need other people. And how can you get the new generation of standardization experts, students to be interested in standards? And that's something we're working on also there. And this is something we have, for example, in the high-level forum. We have a dedicated work tracks on a number of areas, but one of them actually is digital skills and educational skills to raise this awareness, to work. And there with academia is very important. How can we get the universities to add this in one way or another. But maybe not you become a specialist in standards making, but you might be having as part of your law degree or part of your financing degree or engineering degree that you have a bit, at least awareness that it's part of the toolbox. So this is something also, but there we can do it by ourselves. We need to work, and I think that's something also in the context of G7. We're interested to see if you can maybe work out some ways there together. Another aspect that's increasingly we saw now with the recent war in our neighborhood, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, you know, see the resilience of our society, and there also again, maybe focus being very much on the defense, but we see what is being attacked is the civilian installations. It's the power generation, it's the grids, it's the cyber security. So I think this is something for the overall resilience, and there also standards play a very, very important role in this. That actually we raise our society's resilience overall, including supply chains and everything else there also there. And again, coming back to the skills education that we discussed earlier also today, it's, of course, we need experts, but we also need not just the development of standards, but also the using of standards. How can we get SMEs? How can we get various small companies somewhere in the middle of nowhere? They can also use AI. They can also use automation, but we need to make sure that they have that. And there's, of course, standards play a very important role. So it's awareness raising, and it's getting included in the process, which has been discussed already several times before. I'm a bit repeating, but it's being one of the last speakers, you end up repeating a bit what other people said. That was the main message from us. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mattias. And you mentioned the need to have the next generation interested in standards, and that gives me the perfect bridge to give the floor to Alberta Pellino. She's the president of Young Ambassador Societies and chair of the Y7. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Dear standardization communities, representative of countries, and distinguished guests, I'm here today representing the Y7, the G7 engagement for youth, that is chaired in Italy by the Young Ambassador Society. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us and for including young people voices in this important discussion. I would like to thank UNI for the kind invitation, and particularly the President Giuseppe Rossi, Director Ruggero Lenzi, Alessandra Pasetti, and Paola Travaini. We are particularly honored to join the first edition of the S7, as it underscores our collective responsibility to shape a future that is not only innovative and interconnected, but also human-centric, sustainable, and suited for the needs of the young people. First of all, we would like to advocate for regulations that not only promote environmental sustainability and circular economy, but also protect the longevity of our planet for future generations. The climate and environmental are topics of great interest and concern for young people. To give you an idea, every year we conduct a big consultation and a big survey, and we ask thousands of young people which one you think are the main priorities that the G7 and G20 leaders should focus on. The results are striking. More than 87% of young people say that the fight against climate change is the top priorities that the world's leaders should address. Therefore, we emphasize the critical necessity for developing stringent regulations and comprehensive standards that ensure that environmental sustainability and circular economy can be central priorities in the global governance. Secondly, in a world driven by the rapid innovation and digital change, it's crucial for us that every individual has the tool to benefit from the digital transformations. We believe that standardization organizations can play a pivotal role in shaping the digital economy that is not only robust and innovative, but also equitable and inclusive for the younger generations. Another very important point for us is also the issue of data protection and privacy. Young people are particularly vulnerable to privacy breaks and misinformation. So for us, it's fundamental that standards prioritize the protection of young users' data and provide clear guidelines of digital consents, empowering youth while at the same time safeguarding their personal information. Thirdly, in an era that is driven by technology, it's crucial for us to support the small, medium enterprise and also the startups that very often are founded by young people. To give you an example, in Italy, at the moment, 18% of the innovative startups are created by young people, and this number is growing in time. For this reason, we think that standardization can play a key role in reducing barriers to entry and establish frameworks for product quality and safety, allowing the innovative startups founded by young people to compete on a level playing field with larger corporations. It's also very important for us to ensure that these standards are communicated in an easy and effective way, because often startups and small enterprises may lack the departments specialized that larger companies can have, and so providing a clear, concise, and practical guidance for application of norms could be very important for them. In conclusion, we advocate for a proactive, inclusion, a resilient standardization framework that not only anticipates the needs for the future generations, but also empowers young people, ensuring them a sustainable, equitable, and prosperous tomorrow. Thank you very much again for the kind invitation, and we really look forward to continue to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alberta. That was very inspirational. I'm so glad to hear the way you recognize the value of standards. And there is an area where we can do better, actually, to incorporate more young voices to participate in the standard development process. We need you to be standard makers together with us. So let's continue that conversation. So with that, we conclude our panel. Please join me in a round of applause. Thank you so much to all of you for your valuable contributions. Now we will have a short musical performance, and right after that, the conclusion of this first wonderful panel will be presented. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just a few words to say to you why I'm here and what I try to do. And first of all, thanks Uni for having me. And I'm Andrea Casta, and my artistic path is about matching music with our human being, our history, our environment, all the topics that you are trying to face during this tough period of humanity. So we begin with Rome, the strange period that we all lived all over the world a few years ago during COVID. So the beauty of our Rome without humans around, and we tried to get through this period with the help of culture and beauty, because it's chained to our soul. And what I do is to match this kind of environment and store history that belongs us all with my music. And in the second part, I've been to the Mont Blanc, so at the top of the Alps, where the snow and the ice represent the heritage of our planet. And this snow becomes water, so I had the chance to challenge my sport and musical abilities playing violin underwater. So that's what I did, and I have another couple of songs for you after the panel that you are going to start, and I will try to face another point of view with other music and other images of my repertoire. So thanks Uni, and see you later. Ciao.
Norma is making us wait. You have me. I don't know what is best.
Sherry, you have your violin?
Yeah. Yeah, very sorry, because it's not just a moment of patience. It's more than a moment of patience. We have some technical problem to solve with the internet connection, very simply, so to the connection to OpenAI. But anyway, we can start with the second session, please. Elena Santiago, thank you very much.
So, good morning. I would like first to thank the Italian G7 presidency for organizing this very, very important event and give us the opportunity to profile the value of standards to support the so many challenges that we are facing today. My name is Elena Santiago Cid. I am the Senelec Director General. So I'm thrilled to follow after Sergio Mujica, the ISO Secretary General. And we are covering a region in the world. I do believe that it's a region that can make things change, that can make a huge contribution to all the ambitions that have been mentioned today, and that can really help to progress humanity. It's extremely difficult also to follow after this beautiful music that we have heard, but we need to come back to earth, and the future is in our hands. So let's try to find some solutions. This panel is, the title is Shared Solutions. So, and this is extremely important, and I was very happy when I was invited to be the moderator of this panel, because this is precisely what we do in standardization. We share knowledge, we share challenges, we share culture, we share diversity, we are united in diversity. This was the logo of the European Parliament for many years, and I really loved it. And we shared solutions. What we would like to do with this panel is also to showcase. So my request to the panelists, and I just made one question to all of them, we will have representatives from the 7 national standards bodies in the 7 countries of the G7, and I will make also a small contribution from the European standardization perspective. But my question to them was, give us an example. Give us an example or a couple of examples of how standardization is actually contributing to the green and digital just transition. Be specific so that we can understand how we can translate high-level political ambitions into our daily life, into our operations, into our economy. And we need to address gender, we need to address the AI challenges, trustworthiness, we need to address the circular economy, we need to address everything related to the climate and nature, because this is something that Alberta has put a lot of emphasis. And thank you, Alberta, because you have brought hope to the standardization community. Also, we can see that the young generation is passing very, very important messages. And it's very good that you are involved, because that's the way we can find shared solutions to the challenges we have. So green and digital transition, just transition, and showcase examples of what you are doing, national standards organizations in your country, in your region, in order to find solutions to these challenges that we have. And we don't have much time, because life cycles are shorter and shorter. So we need to be able to modernize the system that we manage. So I'm going to start, and we have some virtual representatives, but I'm very happy to have some real ones with me in the panel. We will start with the CEO of the Canadian Standardization Council, Chantal Gueux. She has sent us a message to reply to this question. So if we can start with Chantal, please.
and IEC committees show that the vast majority of them do not recognize gender as relevant to the work of their committee. Good morning, and thank you for having me. It is exciting to be part of this event and to discuss how standardization can support the policies of our countries. In the previous session this morning, a wide array of challenges facing our world were raised, including concerns regarding bias in the field of artificial intelligence, particularly gender bias. As well, standardization was raised as a potential way of dealing with them. It is true that standardization can serve as a foundation to tackle some of these pressing issues, such as the concerns around AI. Standards facilitate market access, interoperability, and connectivity. Standards offer guidelines for responsible AI development, mitigating bias, discrimination, and privacy breaches, thereby fostering trust and adoption. Standardization can facilitate the implementation of AI regulation, equipping those deploying and regulating AI systems with the processes and the technical tools needed for ensuring regulatory compliance. But for standards to do this, we need to ensure that the process of developing standards is also free from gender bias. Gender bias is pervasive worldwide. The UN's Gender Social Norms Index, which covers 85% of the global population, shows that close to 9 out of 10 women and men hold fundamental biases against women. And a recent survey of ISO and IEC committees show that the vast majority of them do not recognize gender as relevant to the work of their committee. People make standards, so if people are biased, standards will be. In 2019, we at the Standards Council of Canada signed the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe's Declaration for Gender Responsive Standards and Standards Development. The declaration notes that women are underrepresented in standards development and that outcomes for men and women can be different. We have developed an action plan and taken an active leadership role internationally to advance gender responsive standards. These are standards that acknowledge the distinct needs of different genders and take concerted action to ensure the efficacy of standards for all. Both the UNECE and ISO-IEC have released guidance on how to develop gender responsive standards. These guides offer practical steps to establishing effective policies and practices which support women's equal participation as a strategic priority. They offer a baseline for standards development organizations aiming to ensure equity in their working processes and greater efficacy in the standards they develop. By implementing the use of guidelines like these into our processes, we can intentionally try to address the bias that, as individuals, we bring to the standards development table. This is exceptionally important in areas like AI, where unintended effects of bias can prevent people from obtaining opportunities for education, for jobs, business, mortgages, not to mention proper safety and healthcare. Standards are not the solution to every problem, but we do want to ensure that they are helping to address the challenges we face and not widening the gender gap. Addressing gender inequality means addressing institutionalized discrimination by ensuring that standards for climate change, for AI, and for every other thing we work on are gender responsive. We can help to advance gender equality and ensure that everyone in society is protected.
So, very important comment from Chantal. There is indeed a need to introduce gender requirements in the standards making process. We were also speaking during the break that A lot of data that are currently used in the standards development come from biased data, and this is a very important point that we need to start if we want the standards that are scientific based, but also can deliver to the ambitions that we need. Our second speaker today is a CEN member, so he's the Director General of the French Standard Organization, AFNOR. His name is Olivier Perrin, and he's going to join us online. So Olivier, if you can give us an example showcasing how we can support the green and digital just transition, I would be very grateful. Thank you.
You hear me well?
Yes, we do, very well.
Good, excellent. Well, it's an honor to be with you virtually, thanks to information technologies. I think that it's important to underline the importance of the public-private partnership that comes from the standardization work. Sergio, our friend Sergio, underlined also the importance of readiness and timeliness. And I think that in this respect, standardization also can lend a hand. Well, to be specific, because Elena, you invited me to be specific, as early as 2022, at the French level, we started some work with what we call AFNOR specification relating to eco-design of digital services. So I think that we check two boxes in one way with digital and green transitions, because, well, obviously the hardware part is quite obvious of information technologies, but the bottom of the iceberg might be less obvious sometimes to observe. And if you just take the handling of data, sometimes data can be stored, sometimes data can be loaded or reloaded. And it's just an example of the fact that according to the choice we make, we have a different impact on the energy and the ecology as well. So it's important to bring good practices, shared practices, also available for big and small users, as Ochi-san underlined as well earlier this morning, because maybe the bigger players have a bigger impact, but the smaller players are quite numerous. And once more, it's important to provide some kind of shared solutions. This in turn could bring also indicators, could bring help. This is what Michael underlined on the part of indicators in terms of conformity assessment, because what can be measured can be optimized. It's important also to bear in mind the fact that it can also enable benchmarking reporting. We have heard a lot outside about sustainability reporting. I feel that this kind of standards could also lend a hand. We should not accept that good technical work is being ignored by some people not acquainted with them. So there is an obligation, a moral one, to share this kind of things so that sustainability reporting is also harnessing this kind of expertise in order to avoid to reinvent the wheel just because the fact that people ignore the content of good, reliable, tested and tried solutions. To wrap up, in one sentence, I would say that the beauty of the strength of voluntary standards lies, to me, in their effectiveness for tackling societal challenges in a shared framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivier, and thank you also for being specific. Indeed, we have been working a lot in order to find shared solutions for the sustainability reporting in Europe. I will focus on the European dimension, but I know that at international level, there are also a lot of efforts in order to get together all the knowledge on sustainability requirements that can help the corporate sustainability reporting in the world, that can, in the end, lead investments and also enable a fair level playing field to decide who is indeed committed to sustainability and who may need some more help and support to get there. So thank you for that. And from Germany, we are going to move to, sorry, from France, we are going to move to Germany. And now we have got as a panelist Michael Stephan, who is a member of the Dean Board in Germany. So Michael, if you can give a showcase, give us an example of what is happening in Germany. It can be also in contribution with the European and the international standardization activities as an example, a solution that can address the challenges that we heard during our first panel.
Very much, Elena. I will talk about a couple of examples and standards, of course. First of all, good morning from Berlin and hello to everybody. We heard from Markus Reigl in the morning about the importance of resilient global supply chains. And our entire economy and wealth is based on trade and exchange of goods across the world. And everybody understands it's not anymore an exchange of and delivery of goods from location A to location B. We talk about truly global value creation networks. To make that work, a so-called quality infrastructure is required, which enables modern and efficient quality assurance, a quality infrastructure which is fit for the digitalized and sustainable future of our economies. Key of this interaction are information and data, and information exchange is more and more being established. We all order now our products digitally. We use digital market platforms, B2B or B2C. We plan digitally our production. We develop digitally our products, and we have digital twins for our products, which describe the entire product life cycle, leading in the end also and supporting by a digital product passport. All this can only be achieved if we and our systems understand each other, when we talk the same language, when data is being interpreted and used in the same way anywhere around the world. This understanding is being achieved by global standards. Standards describe the basis for information exchange, like for instance ISO 10300, which is a standard for computer interpretable representation and exchange of product manufacturing information, and that became over the last 30 years the standard for information exchange of product models, for instance in the automotive industry. A more generic approach is being developed in ISO JTC1 SC32, which is called Data Management and Inter-Exchange. SC32 provides enabling technologies to promote harmonization of data management facilities across sector-specific areas. And it describes, for instance, reference models, frameworks for the coordination of existing and emergent standards, definitions of data domains, servers and protocols for persistent storage and interchange of data. If we talk now about our product and its representation, we can ask ourselves, of course, where do we search and where do we find information of our products? And yes, it's often the internet where we search for information. So the idea was to use the capabilities of the internet to represent our industrial process chain, our assets, and our products. We talk about the Internet of Things, which, of course, became a standard as well. And JTC1 SC41 manages the standardization program on the Internet of Things and digital twins, including their related technologies. And Markus in the morning expressed already the digital twin. And it's a topic where I would like to spend a few sentences. The digital twin describes the current state of a product, process, or resource. Each digital twin is a multidimensional model that empowers applications to create better products more quickly and efficiently. Of course, this definition is also based on ISO standards, for instance, ISO 23274, Digital Twin Framework for Manufacturing. In the meantime, the use and the capabilities for digital twins go much beyond the manufacturing processes, and we are looking forward to represent the entire product life cycle, from cradle to grave, or even better, from cradle to cradle. The digital product passport has its origin in the instruction of use, in the past well known as bigger paper manuals. With a digital product passport, a QR code on the project can be scanned, makes all relevant information of the product available, and allows for adding further information relevant. For instance, how a product is being used and how wear and tear of a product can be represented. This opens clearly the path towards optimized usage and reuse, meaning it supports directly the transition into a sustainable and green era. By integrating information of the carbon footprint of products, for instance, into the digital twin and the digital product passport, everybody would be able to understand how a product contributes to the green transition. Of course, ISO 14067, greenhouse gases, carbon footprint of product, describe requirements and guidelines for this quantification. All of that should be established in a safe and secure environment, and ISO 27000 provides an overview of information security management systems and defines terms and definitions commonly used by those systems and are key if we define secure information and data systems. I stop here. I hope I could explain a little bit how standards contribute to the global supply chain networks and to the digital transformation. Standards build a basis for common understanding, information exchange, reliability, safety, and security. Let's continue to use and to develop global standards to make our lives easier, safer, and better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. So far, so good. And I promise that I didn't ask the panelists to focus on one or the other of the challenges, but we have addressed inclusiveness in the first one, we have addressed sustainability in the second, and we have addressed digital in the third panelist. Now, David, Ruggiero, and Mrs. Nishikawa, and Joe, you have also to complete this information, but I think that we are doing good. Now I'm going to move to David Bell. David is the Director of Standards Policy in the British Standards Institution. BSI is a Sen and Senelec member, and I would like, David, that you also showcase what we are doing to address one of the challenges. And you can choose, because we have addressed the most important ones so far, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. All the difficult ones have been solved already, so this is, makes my job very easy. Thank you, Elena, and thank you, Uni, for hosting this important meeting. I think it's a really good opportunity for us to put standardization at the highest level in the conversation of the G7 events this year, and we welcome that moving forward as well. I think I recognize that there's a lot of people on the call and here in the room for whom standards and standardization is not a familiar concept. They're new to this topic. And I think it's always worth remembering that, as I often do, that the two real purposes of standards is to give trust and confidence. That's why we exist. We give trust and confidence. We help consumers to have trust and confidence in the products they buy, investors to have trust and confidence in the investment in the companies they make, for companies to have confidence that their products will meet the regulatory or market needs in the territories they want to sell their product, for regulators and policymakers to have trust and confidence. So standards play a really vital role in the global economy, but they can only play this role if they meet some of the important tests about what is a standard. And I build here on what Daniele Gerundino said earlier. Standards are only effective if they have the multi-stakeholder approach. So we need to have all voices represented around the table to define the standard. And secondly, and just as importantly, they need to agree by consensus what the best approach is. If you have those two elements, then you know that some of the issues that we raised earlier on, we have a chance to solve them. How can standards solve the problem of workers? To Ornella's point, how do standards solve workers' challenges if workers are not represented at the table? How do they solve the challenges of the consumers if consumers are not represented? To the excellent comments that Alberta made about young people, and I do think here the standards organizations need to think more about how we can systematically bring younger people to the table. How can we represent the future interests of society if they're not represented at the standards table? So standards has a really important role, and I'd like to talk about one example on the green transition of how those standards are trying to build trust and confidence in nature markets in the UK. So we're all familiar with the challenges of biodiversity loss and the challenge of damage to our nature and our natural environment. In the UK in particular, we're recognized as one of the most nature-depleted countries. There's a lot of work to do. UK government has set a legally binding target to halt biodiversity loss by 2030, but that requires significant private investment. And private investment in markets only works when the market functions as a financial market functions. Nature markets don't work in that way because nature is not valued in the same way. So how can investment decisions follow the same process that other financial investments make? We're working with stakeholders in the UK on a new set of standards called our Nature Investment Standards Programme, which is looking to set some frameworks for effective nature markets. Because if there's no trust and confidence in what a nature market is, when someone invests in a nature-friendly farming initiative or in a new forestry initiative, how can they be sure that the environmental and nature benefits will accrue as they expect? And if they don't meet those tests, if they don't give them that confidence, they won't invest, and we will miss out on billions of euros of investment going into some of these major projects and making those change. So that's a standard that will hopefully drive nature markets to work towards net zero, to work towards the halting biodiversity. And what we've published, we call a flex standard. So we heard that excellent challenge earlier from Mattias from the European Commission about the speed of standardization, because if you know anything about standardization, you will have heard the stories that it's not always the quickest tool to solve market challenges. The flex standard that we produce in the UK is the quickest attempt that we have to do that. So typically in 1 or 2 months, we will produce a document that will be publicly available for comment. The comments will feed back into the next iteration of the document. It will then be released again for a next iteration, and this process continues until the document reaches a level of maturity. And when all of the stakeholders are satisfied by consensus that actually there is a way of reaching the goals that have been set for that area. So that flex standard is the first in a series. We'll also be looking at carbon and other biodiversity issues, but it's an attempt to produce in the green transition a just transition for nature markets. The key is, and we must never forget this, and our stakeholders earlier gave us this real challenge, that this only works if all of the stakeholders are active and participate fully in the process, if they are empowered, if they are supported, and that we make sure that the standards are fit for all of their uses. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. If you have heard me before, you would have heard the wider the participation, the wider the market acceptance. And we heard also from Daniele Gerundino this morning, and I really enjoyed the values of standardization when he said standards disseminate fast innovation in the market and also operationalized regulatory requirements in the market. This will not happen if we don't have all the relevant stakeholders sitting around the table. So thank you very much for this great example. And now we move to our host, Ruggero Lenzi. So he's the CEO of the Italian national member. He's the reason why some of us are here today. We are very grateful because that has given us the opportunity to spend one night in Rome and at least one day with the Italian stakeholders and with the G7 stakeholders that are connected. So the floor is yours, Ruggero. Please illustrate us with good Italian examples.
Yes, thank you very much, Elena. And I really want to, on behalf of UNI and all the G7 standardization body, I want to thank for the stakeholder representative. We have valuable contribution and for sharing the request at this summit. Before I fully recognize, obviously, the importance of a market-driven standard to unlock the full potential of a cutting-edge technology and facilitate the integration across the organizations. In an era of rapid technological change, the role of technical standardization in providing answer based on existing knowledge and developing standard in emerging field is more crucial than ever. From enabling technologies for the industrial production to the sustainability of critical raw materials, quantum technology to artificial intelligence and circular economy. In UNI, we published in 2022 our first technical specification, the UNI TS 11820, to measure the circularity of organization. I think it's one of the first examples worldwide. But before that, we need to make sure that technical standards keep pace with innovation and guide its development in a responsible and ethical way. We're working a lot in UNI on this approach. And that's why an example that really is to follow, absolutely, is the international standard ISO 26000 on social responsibility. I must say that it was strange how in Italy, when this standard was published more than 10 years ago, it was not so well followed. Today is in the top 10 of the bestseller of standard in Italy. That means that the cultural change locally need really to understood the value of standards. And maybe you have the idea that the standards that are produced are not valuable at that moment, but 10 years after, they are actual. That's a very good example that we have in Italy. Because we also need to work together to develop common standards that protect citizen rights, foster gender aspects, and make circular economy possible. As I said, we have some in-place solution in Italy, and the most important one is our UNI PDR 125, the standard on gender equality. In Italy, in 1 year, we have more than 1,000 companies certified with this standard. It's a cultural change, impressive, following this UNI PDR 125. And the G7 standards body, all of us, we are committed to our demand and work together and develop standards that promote sustainability. Biodiversity is another very important aspect. I think that today everybody is speaking about sustainability. And I said, it was 2 or 3 years ago, you will see that sustainability will be replaced in the communication of companies by biodiversity. And it has happened. Yesterday I was at the airport coming here in Rome, and there was a very important advertising about one of the big 4 of the consultancy in the world. And the idea was, after sustainability, there is biodiversity. So it's important that ISO is working on that, and we are all committed on the future standard of biodiversity. This means actively involving all the stakeholders in the standardization process. It can be said from large companies, SMEs, consumers, civil society group. It means align technical standards with political priorities. We said green transition, digital transformation, and means providing target support to underrepresented groups, such as young people, yes, but also silver aging. Very important, especially in our economy, to ensure that they can fully participate in the economy of the future. This S7 summit is just the beginning of the dialogue that must continue. The standardization body are committing to keeping this channel of communication open and translating your request into concrete action. Together, we can build a future where innovation works for people, for the planet, where economic growth goes hand in hand with social and environmental responsibility and where no one is left behind. So, if I may, viva S7!
We can tell he's our host, so very passionate, and we do believe that it's extremely important that we have this kind of events and collaboration to find shared solutions. So thank you very much for enabling this S7, and let's hope that it needs continue. We are going to stay with me. We are going to travel now to Asia. So we have a Japanese representative that is going to share with us some information about what is Japan doing, the Japan Standardization Organization doing in order to address these critical challenges. So Mrs. Nao Nishikawa, Deputy Secretary General of JISC and Director International Standardization from Japan. Mrs. Nishikawa, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning and good evening, Japan. Thank you, Ms. Santiago, for a kind introduction, and thank you, Uni, for giving me this opportunity to join this session. I am Nao Nishikawa, Deputy Secretary General of JISC, Japanese Industrial Standards Committee, and also Director to the ISO Division METI, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. First, I would just like to touch on the responses to the challenges SMEs are facing, which Mr. Ochi, my colleague, raised in the previous session. And then answer to the question Ms. Santiago asked, specifically an example of a recent standard developed by JISC in support of the green transition. Next slide, please. Well, this is to complement the presentation by Mr. Ochi in the first session. JISC is responsible for developing national and international standards, and one of its objectives is to support the development of standards for SMEs. As in other countries, the proposers, especially industries, need to establish drafting committees or national mirror committees in order to develop national or international standards. This is a heavy burden for SMEs with limited resources, as you can imagine. Thus, we have established the program for the creation of new markets by standardization. When we receive the proposal from SMEs, we will help them to establish the drafting committee to work on the document and to facilitate administrative procedures. This support reduces the load for SMEs so that they can concentrate on the discussion about the draft. We have developed 48 G standards by using this program since 2015, and 11 cases are still in draft. The next slide, please. So this is a case that the SMEs applied for the program. The SME succeeded in developing a new product, an impact absorbing touch sensing outer cover, which observes and detects collision impacts. See these service robots. Its external surface is covered with a soft outer cover. The SME honed in on standardization as an effective approach for conveying the functionality and value of the new product and developed a GIS for performance test. The GIS was published in March last year. The next slide, please. And I'll come back to the points raised by Ms. Santiago, an example of a recent standard for green transition developed by JISC. Green transition is a very important issue for Japan as well. One example presented here is JISC's work of standardization in the steel sector. As you know, the steel industry emits a large amount of CO2, and the CO2 reduction is extremely important for steel industry. ISO TC17 steel, which JISC undertakes the secretariat, are taking on this challenge for some time now. As mentioned in the slide, there are three main activities that TC17 have been working on for green transition. First, developing the standards to calculate site-based CO2. The standards consisted of 4 parts and used in such cases as Energy Conservation Diagnostic Survey. In order to align with the current updates, they are under revision. Second, TC17 decided to expand its scope to encompass the environmental aspects, aligned with ISO's commitment to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals and with the ISO's London Declaration. Although TC17 had already begun to address environmental issues by explicitly including them in the scope of its activities, it made its intentions clear. And last but not the least, TC17 established a new SC related to environment and energy and the steel industry to tackle climate change issues. This further showed the motivation to work on the environmental issues. I hope these efforts will continue to contribute to solving the issue of climate change and supporting green transition, and I hope my presentation could be one of shared solutions to enable more people and more sectors to participate in standardization activities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nishikawa, and thank you also for the call for expertise. I always say, no experts, no standards. So it's extremely important that we work on education about standardization, that there is a good understanding of what standards can bring, and that we can get the right experts to develop the standards that can be actionable and implementable in the market. So last but not least, we moved to the US, to the Americas, and we have the Vice President International Policy from ANSI, the American National Standard Institute, Mr. Joseph Trettler. Joe, the word is yours.
Hello, everyone. First, let me say it's an honor to be invited to speak to you all today. And a special thanks to our organizer and host, Uni, and to our session moderator, Elena Santiago, and of course to my esteemed colleagues and close friends from the other national standards bodies from the G7 joining me on the panel today. I regret only that I was not able to be with you there today in person. My name is Joseph Trettler, and I serve as Senior Vice President for International Policy at ANSI, the American National Standards Institute. I'm pleased to join you today to dialogue on activities to support the shared goals of G7 leaders. For more than 100 years, ANSI has proudly coordinated the U.S. private sector-led standardization system. We serve as the U.S. voice internationally in our role as the official U.S. representative to ISO and via our U.S. National Committee to the IEC. ANSI works in close partnership with industry, government, including NIST, who we heard from in the earlier session. Thanks to my U.S. colleague, Jayne Morrow, for joining us, as well as many others. We do this to advance standards-based solutions to real-world challenges and to support an open and diverse rules-based standards system. In all activities, ANSI is committed to partnerships and standardization that meet global needs and support a global trading system. In fact, ANSI's U.S. standards strategy, which is now in its 5th edition and is updated every 5 years with broad stakeholder input, embraces the globally accepted standardization principles of the World Trade Organization's Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement. Openness, balance, consensus, due process, and transparency, these are the principles that lead to high-quality standards that can support social, sustainable, and technological growth globally. And in light of the social and environmental changes presented by climate change and rapid advances in technology like AI and quantum, international collaboration in forums such as these is as important as ever. ANSI joins the global community in recognizing, supporting, and adopting international standards to drive innovation, solve global crises, and contribute to the green and digital transformations taking place around the world. As one recent example, under ANSI's Standards Alliance Phase 2 partnership with the U.S. Agency for International Development, and along with other ANSI members, we recently conducted a series of trainings on standards to support efficient water, sanitation, and hygiene in developing regions around the world. We're also working on sustainable management systems for communities in places like Côte d'Ivoire. Other new activities covering digital infrastructure, health, and emerging technologies are also in the works. And this November, as part of ANSI's annual celebration of World Standards Day, ANSI will host a conference on standards and sustainability, covering such topics as trade, digital product passports, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. As an international community, there's much opportunity for collaboration among G7 participants. The challenges generated by the intersection of technology, sustainability, and social responsibility require us to be nimble and coordinated. ANSI has long advocated for an open standards system that can address challenges with thoroughness and speed. Leveraging pre-standardization research can help to speed development of standards and enhance contributions to standards. We also highly value public-private partnerships and look to foster increased dialogue among industry, government, academia, and research institutions. At every step in modern history, standardization has helped solve some of the world's greatest challenges. ANSI and the U.S. standardization community are committed to working with our counterparts around the world to spur continued progress and build a better tomorrow through standardization. Working together, we can support an innovation ecosystem that reflects evolving global needs. Again, thanks for the opportunity to contribute to today's important dialogue.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much to all the panelists. As I'm the moderator, I'm going to take also the liberty to answer to my own question, the question about giving an example of how we can support the green and digital and just transition. I would like to mention the importance of the European standardization strategy that has been mentioned by Mattias, Bergdahl, and the Sense and Elect strategy that has at heart the digital and the green transition. And I wanted to take two specific examples. The standardization community, and this is not only Sense and Elect, the national standards bodies of the S7, but in general, all the standards bodies that are really aimed to deliver and to enable positive change. On one side, we need to deliver fast because we have really to address these challenges, uncertainty, and disruptive moments where there is a need to find solutions. On another side, as Ornella was mentioning, we need to have a certain level of accuracy in what we deliver. And we need to be inclusive also. And I would like to pass a positive message here. We have hope from the young generations, but we are making a huge effort in delivering and in supporting the society and the economy to address those challenges. My first example is a specific series of standards, and they are purely European standards. But of course, these are standards that will be offered or have been already offered to the international community to be adopted as international standards. We have a responsibility as European standards bodies to support the single market and to support the European community to fulfill legal requirements, because this is also part of our duty. And we need also to balance that. I also heard Markus Reigl saying it's important to try to harmonize legislation in the S7. I will say it would be very important to have harmonization on legal requirements to address all the challenges that we have. My first standard is a standard that is addressing durability, remanufacturing, repair, recyclability, reuse components, declaration of raw materials, and recycled content. So it's a series of standards that what they do, they give guidance, and they're horizontal standards. So and I decided to choose this one because it has a very, very broad scope. So those manufacturers or users that would like to repair, to reuse, to recycle their products, energy-related products, they have got a series of standards, European standards, that give guidance on how to do that when the product is eligible to be recycled, when the product is eligible to be recycled, and the declaration of critical raw materials, extremely important. We have heard the supply chain and the value chain. We absolutely need to be able to identify not only where is the raw material is, but also how to reuse the raw material that is already in the market. So this is my first example for the green. And my second is not a standard. There are two standards that are not yet published, and they are connected with artificial intelligence. We have heard a beautiful keynote speech by Daniele Gerundino speaking about the threats, but also the opportunities that artificial intelligence bring. And in Europe, in Sensenelec, we have a Joint Technical Committee 21. And this Joint Technical Committee is developing two very important standards. The first one is trustworthiness framework. So this standard is introducing concepts, definitions, terminology, and supporting the stakeholders to contextualize the use of artificial intelligence. Horizontal, fundamental requirements. It's extremely tough piece of work. It is well advanced, and it's intended to be used by those operators that embed artificial intelligence in the products and services that they intend to introduce in the single market. So first one. The second one is artificial intelligence risk management. And I have decided to take the other side of the coin, because this one is actually addressed to those that use products that have got embedded artificial intelligence. This risk management standard is also addressing the way of how we can mitigate the AI risk through the entire life cycle of the AI system. And there we also are trying, or the experts, because here I'm saying that I'm very proud of what the experts are doing, but I'm not contributing to the development of the standard. But what they are trying to do is really to address risks to fundamental rights, to address vulnerable stakeholders and users, and all the individuals and organizations, market and society that can be affected by the risk that AI can bring. So these two very, very important standards are in the work program of the Sensenelec Joint Technical Committee 21, and I hope that they will be made available very soon. And with that, I would like to close our excellent panel. We are also almost at the end of the session. Thank you for your patience. I hope that we brought hope to all of you. I hope that we engage you also to contribute to the standardization activities in the S7, in Sensenelec, in ISO, in IC. It is extremely important that we join forces and that we make the best of the knowledge and the expertise that we can use in the standardization community. So I wish you a very good afternoon, and I think that after another beautiful music break, we are going to hear from Norma. So I think that we can have that break. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, this was my, I try to summarize a big and multi-leveled space trip of my avatar in the future, Commander AJ. So this is my The Space Violin project in which I try to imagine a future where after a big apocalypse, man traveling in space try to recover his humanity, and the human chosen for this challenge is a musician, because music is our heritage of where techniques and soul combine together, keeping our humanity safe for the future. So we started with training AJ. We imagined with my team that in the future we'll be trained only by machine, by AI, like we saw 50 years ago in Kubrick 2000 Odyssey in Space. So it's a lot of narration, a lot of ideas that comes together into my project. I hope that it helps you to summarize the mood of your morning panels, and see you after the lunch break to open a big UNI meeting in the afternoon. Okay? Thank you, Mike. Thank you again. Ciao.
Sorry, Vabbè, tanto sono qua. We got the text. We had the text. We have the text. The final remark. We have the text. Yeah? So it has been performed. It's just the time to send to the direction and to project it. Oh. Yeah, and we have a lunch also. So you can choose, David, or the text or the lunch. Yeah. Sorry, if you can have a look, because we have the result of our little exercise. Thank you.
Summit under the Italian G7 presidency presents an unprecedented platform for dialogue among diverse stakeholders in the field of standardization. As nations navigate digital, green, technological, social, and energy transitions, the summit facilitates a vital exchange between industry, SMEs, research institutions, public entities, NGOs, trade unions, and citizens with the G7 standardization bodies. This gathering aims to address the compounded challenges of modern transitions through collaborative efforts, focusing on creating standards that promote technological advancement while ensuring economic sustainability and inclusivity. These discussions are crucial for shaping standards that meet the pressing demands of stakeholders and fostering an environment conducive to equitable and sustainable development. Analysis and synthesis. The interventions at the summit revealed a unified focus on several key areas: inclusivity, sustainability, security, and interoperability in standardization. Representatives emphasized the need to develop standards that not only drive technological innovation, but also ensure social equity and environmental stewardship. For instance, advancements in AI and cybersecurity standards were frequently discussed, highlighting the need for an ethical framework that supports sustainable development. Examples such as the European Union's GDPR and the ISO standards for sustainability in manufacturing reflect ongoing efforts to address these complex issues. Despite minor regional differences, such as the specific emphasis on digital resilience in the UK and green standards in Germany, there was a strong consensus on the necessity for standards that are adaptable, forward-looking, and inclusive of all stakeholders. Call to action. In response to the declaration from the G7 Industry, Technology and Digital Ministerial Meeting, it is imperative that G7 leaders and politicians recognize the critical role of international standardization in achieving sustainable technological, economic, and social advancements. As we move forward, the G7 standardization bodies must be seen as pivotal tools for societal benefit, facilitating the collaboration needed to address the challenges of digital and green transitions. Leaders are urged to commit to supporting standardization processes that promote transparency, especially in emerging technologies such as AI. There is a pressing need to incorporate green standards that directly address climate change, promoting environmental sustainability alongside economic development. Furthermore, the process of standardization must be democratized to include a broader range of stakeholders, ensuring that all voices are heard and that the standards developed are truly reflective of a diverse set of needs and perspectives. To actualize this vision, it is recommended that G7 leaders foster an inclusive environment for standard development by involving a wider array of stakeholders, including NGOs, citizen groups, and trade unions. Commit to the continuous evolution of standards to keep pace with technological advancements, ensuring that they are robust enough to handle future challenges. Enhance the interoperability of standards across borders to facilitate international trade and cooperation, particularly in sectors critical to economic and environmental sustainability. Invest in educational and training programs to raise awareness about the importance of standards and ensure their effective implementation across industries. By adhering to these guidelines, G7 leaders can ensure that standardization acts as a catalyst for innovation, equity, and environmental stewardship, ultimately leading to a more sustainable and just global society.
We have a lunch. Thank you very much. And as you have understood, this text was completely generated after this meeting. Nobody has touched one word of what you have just heard. Thank you very much.